When one is horrible, it means that there is nothing that is objectively good and progressive that will come out of such individual.
If you have been convicted of an offense before and you have been pardoned, and anybody is trying to bring that up against you and calling you a convict, you have the power to sue that person for defamation.
Justice must not only be done, but it must be seen by all to have been manifestly done.
Every citizen has a right and every citizen has an obligation.
That a plea of ultra-virus acquit or convict is very different from the plea of pardon.
Trespass is that act that interferes with the peaceful.
No matter how minute,
no matter how minute.
Who comes to equity must come with clean hands. Hello out there, you are welcome to another fresh episode of the program Justify Nigeria on ACNN television, reaching you from Abuja. On today's episode, our subject of discussion will be the controversies on Electoral Act Amendment Bill. My name is Anozechi and I'm so your anchor. In taking a general view of electoral process in Nigeria, there are various electoral laws in Nigeria that govern the process of electing people into political offices. The major laws governing electoral process in Nigeria are as follows. Number one, the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Number two, the Electoral Act 2010 and the INEC regulations and guidelines for the conduct of elections 2019. In all these laws, one of them, which is the Electoral Act, is currently undergoing the process of amendment. Since then, there are certain controversies that has been a quagmire and also disagreement among the parliamentarians, that is, members of National Assembly that consists of Senate and House of Representatives. For the purpose of our discussion today, we'll look at the Electoral Act in its entirety, isolate these controversies and make sense of it all. Joining me now in the studio to buttress and elaborate on these issues is Barrister Nwibo Evelyn Chigozie. She is the head of corporate and property law at the law firm of Gabriel Jean & Co. and also a member of Unity by here in Abuja. You are welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. We look at what is going on, even both the upper house and the lower house, the House of Representatives, on the issue of amendment bill. Well, before we go into that in detail, is instructive at this moment to educate our viewers on what Electoral Act is all about. What actually is Electoral Act? Let us start from there.
Okay, thank you very much for that question. Okay, Electoral Act is a law that was enacted by the federal legislature for the conduct of election in Nigeria. And this act was enacted in 2010. It is that Electoral Act that provide, in line with section 153 of the 1999 Constitution, which provides for the establishment of INEC. That Electoral Act,
that means INEC has its validity and roots and legal backing from the Constitution.
From the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Section 153 provides for establishment of INEC. And now when Electoral Act was enacted, Electoral Act recognized INEC and its functions.
Okay, now INEC now derives their power from that Electoral Act, which the Electoral Act has its roots from 1999 Constitution.
From 1999 Constitution, yes. So the Electoral Act is just an act enacted for the conduct of election in our society, and it provides for the functions of the INEC.
So that means anything that's got to do concerning election, no matter how it can be conducted, and the Electoral Act has the upper power, the law to be consulted.
Yes. Everything about election in Nigeria is embedded in our Electoral Act.
Thank you very much. Now we look at the question is now, before we look at the controversies that has been going on in this amendment, when and why is it necessary for a law to be amended, especially this Electoral Act? Is it a must that a law must be amended? If it is, when and why?
Okay, due to the dynamic nature of law, due to the dynamic nature of our laws must be amended. Number one is when there is lacuna
you are speaking, these Lego terms. So for the benefit of our viewers that may not be lawyers, please have to break it down. So let's understand what you mean by lacuna before
let me just say, when there is an omission, is when there is an omission in any act or in any law, such law will be amended. And for the interest of fairness in the society, it is good to amend our laws when we discover that there is an omission or a gap. In order for us to breach that gap, we amend the law or the acts. Take for instance the Electoral Act now. In our Electoral Act, transmission of election results is done manually. But now in the amended bill, what they are trying to put there is that it can be, let it be transmitted electronically, for instance. So because there is a lacuna there, they want to improve the law. So that it can also be done electronically. So it is when it is necessary for us to amend our law is when there is lacuna in the law. Or when there is a gap in the law. It is necessary for us to amend.
So apart from you just mentioned now gap and of course lacuna, that is emptiness, or is there any other reason by which a law could be amended?
Yes, there are other reasons why laws can be amended too. Yes, even like in some circumstances, there are so many things that are not in our written laws. Such things can be embedded in the law.
In the law, the law can be amended. The amendment is the anytime things are changing, dynamics of society and law, there is need to amend the law to suit the circumstances by which people are living. That's wonderful. Thank you very much. Now we look at the issue of this amendment, electoral amendment bill that has been going on for some time now, and the squabbles, the quagmire, the disagreement. Some people say it's right, some people it's not right. Now there are some people that are not following as a lawyer. But you agree with me, there has been some disagreement and problems going on in this amendment. The question is now, what are those controversies? And decisively buttress these controversies to your understanding of somebody who might not be a lawyer, who might not be following what is happening, so that we can take it up from there. What are these controversies? What is it all about? Okay.
First of all, I must thank the committee that are in charge of this amendment of our Electoral Acts. Yes, I must thank them for coming up with the amendment of the Act, because the way is that they have discovered that there's a lacuna in the Act. That is why they want to amend it, and it's very good. But now the controversies we are having now in the Senate, there are divisions. We will agree to that. There are divisions in the House now, especially with regards to clause 52 sub 3.
What is that clause 52 sub 3 talking about?
Okay, that particular clause provides for the amendment of the Electoral Act that elections can be election results can be transmitted electronically. It's still, the controversy is very much because even at the end of the whole squabble and the problem, I know the House voted in favor of the recommendation given by Senator Abdullahi that represents part of it should be from Niger State. Niger State.
Yes, that's the Senate Committee Chairman on INEC and the Electoral Amendment Bill.
Amendment Bill, yes. He recommended that election results can be transmitted electronically, but subject to the approval of NCC and the National Assembly. Yes. Then, but Senator Akpan recommended that election results can be transmitted electronically if the electronic means is fit and proper. It can be transmitted electronically. So now, during the vote, so in the House, the majority of the members of the House, they supported Senator Abdullahi's view that it can be let INEC be subjected to other governing bodies, which is NCC or the National Assembly. Yes. So majority of the senators voted in favor of that. Yes, they had about 58 votes. Whereas about 28 senators voted. That is the minority. About 28 votes for the minority
leader.
Yes, minority leader. Yes, they voted for Mr. Akpan's Senator Akpan's view of lady.
Everything is 80. So there are minorities and of course there are majorities.
Yes, namely minority and majority. Yes, total vote of 80. Then other senators, some senators didn't vote. We had about 28 senators that didn't vote
some people,
at all.
Of course, they left on that day. Yes.
But our major interest should be that the amendment of this Electoral Act is all geared towards the benefit of the masses. Yes, and in my own opinion, I was of the opinion that let this result be transmitted electronically, even manually. But then why we want to run away from manual transmission of results is because it is marred with irregularities. Sometimes it takes time before results can be announced.
Why do you think that it is marred with irregularities, this issue of manual transmission or manual producing of results? But you are going to attempt to answer that question and make clear to it very well when we come back from break. Please, viewers, do join us again. Hi, you're welcome to The Speaker, reaching you from ACNN Television from Abuja. The Speaker is a program by which we treat some topical issues happening in the polity. On today's segment, we are looking at electoral Nigeria or non-electoral Nigeria. My name is Anozie Chinomso. An electoral process or system is a set of rules and regulations that determine how elections and referendums are conducted and how their results are determined. From this simple definition, it means that a nation that adheres strictly to the rules of an electoral process, that nation produces honesty in leadership and stability in good governance. Suffice it here to say that non-electoral states is always filled with greed, dishonesty and systematic breakdown of law and order through grafts and gradual collapse of the polity. With the kind of wicked and unthinkable things happening in Nigeria, I'm moved to ask on whether we are living in an electoral Nigeria or non-electoral Nigeria. I felt so unsafe and embarrassed when I saw a radical scene at both chambers of the National Assembly debating over the mode of transmission of results by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, on election day. Trouble started when the Red Chambers, that is the Senate, attempted to amend Clause 52 Sub 3 of the new Electoral Act. The Joint National Assembly Committee on INEC and Electoral Matters have recommended that INEC should reserve the power to transmit results by electronic means where applicable on the day of election. It is unfortunate that some of our so-called distinguished senators voted in favor of removal of electronic transmission of results. What a non-electoral Nigeria. It is also a non-electoral Nigeria like ours. You will see a chairman of a committee, Senator Kabiru Gaya, voted against his own reports and recommendation. What a shame. It is because of poor electoral process that has made Nigeria produce some leaders in government whose mode of activity is not only docile but also complacent. Can you just tell me, yes you, tell me what a grand and great-grandfather and mothers in 70s, 80s, if not 90s doing in government? Just tell me why these lawmakers are afraid of Clause 52 Sub 3 of the new Electoral Act. All this can only happen in a non-electoral Nigeria. Are these people afraid that they will no longer rig elections as usual if Clause 52 Sub 3 of the new Electoral Act is allowed to stay? Or are they afraid that they will no longer be rotating and revolving around the corridors of power as usual? Indeed, Chinua Achebe was right when he said that when dry bones are mentioned, old people will become afraid. How can it be that Nigeria is in the habit of producing people that has no conscience to manage her affairs? How can it be that in civilized and developed countries such as France is producing a 43-year-old Emmanuel Macron as president, and Nigeria is producing a grandfather as a president? How can it be that Nigeria still have affinity of electing political thieves into office? How can it be that Nigerians are comfortable and happy of electing hyenas and lions to take care of goats and sheep. And when they are consumed, you wonder why. How can it be that Nigerian goes to polls to elect a political bicycle and we expect it to function as an aeroplane? How can it be that Nigerians elect political demons and expect them to give us democratic blessings as saints? How can it be that we address these people as legislators while some of them are legislators? How can it be that we call these people executives while some of them are indeed executives? How can it be that we perceive these politicians as honorables while some of them happen to be horribles? How can it be? How can it be? How can it be? It can only be in a non-electoral Nigeria. When there is a breakdown and decay of electoral process, the result is always negative and catastrophic, which produces bad leaders occupying leadership positions. And that is why we do not have good governance, no good roads, poor infrastructure, unemployment, poor healthcare system, low standard of education, insecurity everywhere, breakdown of law and order, and man's inhumanity to fellow man because of dilapidated leadership. I think it's high time we in Nigeria stopped electing cheaters and elect leaders instead. I'm saying the time has come when we should stop electing president of Nigeria, but rather elect a true Nigerian to become the Nigerian president. In order to justify Nigeria, I therefore speak that both chambers of National Assembly should contribute their quota in nation building by establishing a healthy and strong electoral system which is devoid of rancor, rigging, and other electoral malpractices by ensuring that Clause 52 Sub 3 of the new Electoral Act and other recommendations from INEC, civil society organizations, and the entire citizens is allowed to stay, bearing in mind that Vox Populi, Vox Dei, which means voice of the people, is voice of God. Restore the long lost confidence on them and further ensure that the will of the people may be done so that Nigeria electoral process will provide environment where elections could be conducted in a manner that is free, fair, and credible. If not, we shall continue to live in a non-electoral Nigeria instead of an electoral Nigeria. My name is Anozie Chinomso. I just want to speak. Hello, glad to know that you are still there with us. We are still here in the studio with Barrister Nwibo Evelyn Chigozie. Barrister, before we went on break, you are trying to make a point that the transmission of result or what we have currently now that calls for this amendment usually is manned by irregularities. That is why Senate and some civil society organizations are recommending for this electronic transmission. Please take it off from there.
Okay, yes. When these elections are being conducted and the result is being transmitted manually, sometimes it takes some days before the result will be announced. Yes, it takes some days. In the process of the days that the votes are being counted, it can be marred with irregularities. An adequate number will not be transmitted again. But when it is when this vote is being transmitted both manually and electronically, whatever the electronic gives us, we compare it with what manual.
The recommendation is not excluding manual entirely. No, they are saying both of them, both manual and that of electronic, so that they can compare the two. That's what you're saying.
No. It's not at all. This one is just my own personal opinion. It's just my own personal opinion. Yeah, just
but you are saying that the recommendation of that electronic transmission would have been better. Yes. And that is what some other civil societies are talking about.
Yes.
Now, the question I'm asking, remember on that day on the House of the Senate, that 28 people, of course, we are absent. Why 28 voted in favor of electronic transmission, and of course 52 voted in support of that, removing it.
Yes.
Now, is there any place in law, or is it possible for those ones that are absent to be given another opportunity for them to cast their vote in the Senate? Is there any law, or is that now that they have missed it, does it mean it's final, they cannot be called upon to cast their votes?
Now that they have missed their right and opportunity to vote, they can't be called again, because I believe they have the rules of the house. Okay. Yes, and according to the information that day, most of them were available, but they didn't vote. Some left. Okay. Maybe because they don't like.
They waived their right.
Yes,
or whatever.
It's deemed as if they've waived their right. Yes, they've waived their right. Yes, it doesn't come as they've waived their right. Yes.
Now, there are some opinions. Opinions are divided that there are some reasons that some senators are giving that the issue of lack of network or appellative network system sometimes in the remote area, that is why they are voting against that. Do you think that's a sufficient reason why they want to remove this electronic transmission?
Now, I believe the committee worked well on this aspect.
But the chairman of the committee voted against this recommendation.
So I was surprised that on that day, the chairman of the committee voted against it. Now, NCC reported to the committee that 43% of the country was under effective telecommunication coverage. That means 70-something%, or let me just say, that means 70-something% of the society can actually vote electronically.
Yes.
What they should have done is to make sure that they provide this telecommunication network around the society, even in the remote areas, to ensure that when we carry out this electronic voting, it will be successful at the end of the day. Yes.
So that reason is not sufficient at all.
That reason is not sufficient because NCC has conducted their research and told us that it's just 43% of the population. Yes, that doesn't have access to telecommunication.
Now, I now ask you, now, Barrister, do you think that this electronic system, they are saying the issue of electronic transmission, do you think it will make our electoral process better and stronger?
Yes. This electronic means of transmission will make our electoral system better.
Why?
I will use our former last MBA election, 2020. For instance, the election was done electronically.
Okay, to choose the executive.
Yes, to choose, yes.
Okay, this are the part of that's the incumbent president.
The incumbent president of MBA now, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Akpata and his executive members were all selected based on electronic voting. We voted for them electronically.
So you don't need to start going to the place. You can stay in Abuja or anywhere you are and vote.
You can stay anywhere you are and you vote successfully. And as we vote, the vote we are counting. The votes we are counting electronically. So I believe introduction of this electronic means of voting will help us in our society.
And transmission of results
as well. And it will promote transparency. I believe it's very good. It's very good if we adopt this method of electronic transmission of votes. Now, it will help us.
Now, when this issue of transmission starts, for example, and the fears of those senators and some House of Representatives members that say that we should not, in the issue of poor or epileptic services of network. Suppose it happens, what do you think that will be the fate of the electoral process? Because they are looking at it that if at the end of the day that thing happens, there must be some time by which that electronic transmission of result will not be done because of epileptic service. What happens in that circumstance? Don't you think there will be some irregularities in the counting, or because it's somebody that might be operating it? What's your take on that? Because that's the fears of some of all these senators.
Yes. To answer this question now, that's why I suggested initially, even this Senator Faleke from Lagos State, he suggested that, he recommended that let this result be let the electoral result be transmitted both manually and electronically. Yes, in case if there's any irregularities, the two must be balanced for it to be fair. Yes, it's not as if it's not as if we should go solely with electronic transmission. I believe that when we go together with both manual and electronic means of transmission, it will help us, because network is a very big issue. Even though NCC will guarantee us and say we will work and make sure that you have effective communication coverage to enable us have a maybe free and fair results at the end of the election. So it's still geared towards what NCC told us, that is National Communication Commission. Yes. So they still have some work to do. They still need to go back and make sure that the telecommunication system is of good standard, that when we go for this electronic means of transmission, it will help us. It won't take us backward.
Okay, we have a few minutes to end the program, but let me ask you this.
Okay.
Now, you even stated it before now, and some of the senators, that even if they were allowed that electronic transmission, that there must be the collaboration of NCC and National Assembly and all that.
Yes.
Now, do you think that it will make INEC not to be independent if those people, because some of the opinions, some civil society groups said no, INEC, since INEC have said they can do it alone, they should remain. But they say in order to checkmate INEC, because INEC is also a human being, a human soul, do you think it's necessary for other governmental bodies like this NCC to also partner with INEC, or do you think it will make INEC not to be really independent? What's your take on that?
Okay, if INEC partner with other governing bodies, it doesn't take away their powers. The only thing is that NCC will provide the equipment for them, and INEC will go in for the election, conduct everything. That's just it. It will not usurp their power.
Will it make INEC to be independent if they are? Because some people are saying, if you allow this, if you adopt your view now, and some of these senators, that INEC, that word independent, they will not be that independence might not be in INEC again, because they are now collaborating with NCC and other like National Assembly. They are looking at whether it will not affect, the transparency of INEC.
Of INEC.
Yes, what's your take?
Definitely, it will affect the transparency of INEC.
Yes.
And for INEC to enjoy that independence, INEC must be alone. INEC must stand alone. Yes. The only thing is that whatever INEC is doing, INEC will do it in line with, they will work together with NCC, but they will not be subjected to directives of NCC. They will just provide the means for them, and they go in for election. It's an independent body, and it will remain independent.
INEC will remain independent just
Yes.
for them to be recommended to partner with NCC. That does not mean they are usurping their power or making them not to be independent. We want to appreciate you. Thank you very much for coming. And I hope when next we call you, you oblige us to come. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
It is expected of any sovereign state like Nigeria that is 61 years to have a credible election that is devoid of rigging and other electoral malpractices. Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has been saddled on the law with the responsibility to conduct a credible, free and fair election. In order to ensure that, the new amendments have come up with electronic transmission of results and other better electoral processes that can foster transparency in an election. The least parliamentarians could do is to pass that bill as recommended by the committee, civil society organizations, and the entire masses, and stop all this political rascality to frustrate the entire amendment process. Always remember that for us to live a stronger and better Nigeria for our children yet unborn, both leaders and the led must stop thinking about the next election and begin to think about the next generation. This is where we draw the curtain on today's episode of Justify Nigeria. Join us same time, same station on another fresh episode of the program. Until then, this is Anoze Chinomso, wishing you the very best, and bye for now. When one is horrible, it means that there is nothing that is objectively good and progressive that will come out of such individual.
If you have been convicted of an offense before and you have been pardoned, and anybody is trying to bring that up against you and calling you a convict, you have the power to sue that person for defamation.
Justice must not only be done, but it must be seen by all to have been manifestly done.